The situation in Southern Cameroon is progressively getting worse with the filthy living conditions of our people in the bush.
Don't burn, they don't burn our house. Since we come over house, we have a bush here, we move clothes, wash our water dry, and we wait to go wear them for clothes. Begin and then napkin never last, so we move and shake our water so sun.
No clean drinking water and basic health needs. As the death toll continues to mount, mothers are slowly being driven to insanity. Put yourself in the shoes of this desperate grandmother to be.
My problem is say I gave my pikin for us. When they obey, time for born don't pass. Motor road they can go hospital. And the child say do la pikin for us. Our pikin no done and die. Why? Me God help me. Me God help me. Why who suffer who pikin who go get belle for born for art development? It shows it was spoiled because a country doesn't spoil as spoil.
To say the situation is nightmarish is an understatement. Meanwhile, some of the individuals and entities who have taken up weapons to wage war against government forces are now busy turning their guns on each other. This is not a case of friendly fire. This is the end result of power-mongering, backstabbing, greed, poor leadership, and outright boneheaded strategy. The main culprits of the Amazonian Civil War are the ADF and an array of IG-affiliated forces. The situation is now escalating, but the infighting did not start today. Both sides have consciously misreported the facts so as to divert the people's attention. For starters, both sides must accept their fair share of blame for this war. Ayabacho's military parade in Dadi was a ploy to gain badly needed legitimacy and rally funds. But on a tactical level, things did not go so smoothly. His attempt to portray his group as established, disciplined, and uniformed put his fighters at a bigger risk. He quickly fled Dadi, knowing that this was mere propaganda. Otherwise, he would have stayed. See what happened in Dadi after that trip. Mindful that he didn't have the resources to fight a conventional army, he broke a cardinal rule of guerrilla warfare. By exposing the faces of his fighters, they ceased to be guerrilla fighters. Such fighters, due to limited logistics, thrive on intelligence gathering. During the day, they could be teachers, traders, doctors, lawyers, you or me, but transform into fighters at night. By exposing them, their enemy's job of identifying fighters was simplified. In the process, you have also exposed their friends and family members. Wonder why some are pulled out of their houses and gunned down by government forces. It is because their relatives have been identified as fighters and therefore they have become targets for revenge. In this age of social media, many others have made the same mistake. Ayaba, in his attempt to cement the status of Ivumba, his main commander on the ground, ended up blowing his head up and pretty much gave him the right to act at will, thereby creating a lot of tension and division on the ground. As an Ayaba yes man, he was a prime target for Ayaba haters. Ayaba made a critical mistake by enlisting scammers like Tapang Ivo.
Against Tapang Ivo. And I want to say, make Tapang Ivo from today. May no say female shall. No be man will get for work, and then another person take your work, take him chop money, and I give Tapang Ivo First warning, as I yes come up from the BNM. Tabang never ever call the Red Dragon. Never ever call Tree Marshal. So, I won't make them for understand. So I know they for ground, for joke.
And champions of sabotage like Vivian Banwi to join his team. As such, Ayaba inherited the sworn enemies of these dubious characters. By bragging to the likes of Dr. Munzo how he now has guns, Ayaba has boxed himself in a corner, coming off as a warlord willing to go to any length to silence any opponents. All these blunders disqualify him as a leader with the ability to bring unity among his people. On the other hand, the IG, under the leadership of Julius Ayok-Tabe, had seen its hand forced by Ayaba's self-defense initiatives and bullying. To counter this move and establish itself as the powerhouse and champion of the Southern Cameroon struggle, the IG hurriedly tried to embrace the armed struggle. Bad planning and lack of proper knowledge in this domain led to Ayok-Tabe being duped. The IG was only able to get some legitimacy on the ground through the Red Dragons of Lebialem and the notorious Field Marshal, Oliver Anu, brother to Chris Fobene Anu. By so doing, the IG itself has been held hostage by the gangster preacher. Were the IG to dismiss Chris Anu for whatever reason, even with the overwhelming evidence against him, all hell will break loose. The IG, realizing that they had nothing outside of the Red Dragons as boots on the ground, decided to change strategy. They tried to outsmart the other groups and take over their camps by claiming to want a unified command. This was to be achieved with the creation of the ASC, with John Egiawan being the link between the various groups. As the liaison person of the IG, he embarked on a sacred plan, reaching out to commanders to submit names of all their fighters, claiming that this was going to simplify the process of putting them on a payroll. All this behind the backs of the ASC leadership, which was supposed to be in charge of self-defense. However, instead of really trying to unify, he cunningly tried to sway their allegiance towards the IG and to himself for the most part. Unfortunately, this scheme was quickly uncovered, and as such, the ASC and its intention to unite all other factions failed. The IG therefore had to go back to its bag of tricks. Egiawan now embarked on giving cash incentives to commanders on the ground to switch sides. The audio of communication between General Ivo and John Egiawan of the IG is all over social media as proof of the IG trying to buy commanders over. However, the fighters who have betrayed the ADF have walked away with ADF-supplied weapons, which has played to the advantage of the IG. This is so because when fighters switch sides with weapons, the IG and its nefarious pastors can now get away with murder by claiming that these were supplied by the IG, which is absolutely false. By so doing, John Egiawan has been able to swindle the cash he collects from the treasury meant for the defense groups. It is therefore a win-win situation for both the IG and these commanders. Commanders get to keep their cash from the IG, and IG gets free weapons from the ADF. This has caused more strife and mayhem, resulting in the original Tiger forces being split into Tiger 1 and Tiger 2. All sides have continued to trade accusations, blaming each other for attacks on each other's camps for the sole purpose of controlling territory and gaining power. Follow this testimony of ADF atrocities on IG-sponsored fighters.
I just want and I just say more to understand. My brother, your tribe will send for my scheme see. Minimum tribe will talk. Wait till they happen to you. How we ADF they want kill you. When I see you ADF they do have a man. No turn the reference. Turn up give me talk. Me talk to you do ADF them. We ADF they want kill you so.
Put up and mark them.
Put up come back. Now see you ADF they want do the man. So talk with them.
So what you pass? I say Timaya. When you come for upper basic will be there.
Hello.
We'll be there inside by the drink. Around 8 o'clock to 8:30. The car arrest all will be there inside bar. So one them they will play their card. They say all that people they really play card.
Tomorrow they work under house group.
Tomorrow they work under it's in a general.
Okay. That means ADF.
ADF. So it take week for day. We 9 we go for that barrack. It long week for day. Go again. Go catch some 2 boys. Go some one day for here. Can't lock up. Go again.
Yes.
Go find catch some driver way to the command. Whether the command for will bring them. Reach for day now.
No, Johnny here 20 man the talk person the bunny for inside house. Johnny here.
As he long way for inside house. He go bring petrol. If I bid we all 50-50K.
We not do it.
Say we did for say we don't let for outside and we play card. As he bid with that 50-50K. He come out some water, throw or water on top all with that we 13 with the inside house. He go bring 10 liter petrol. Can't throw 1 liter on top each person for inside house. Then he light fire. He set 2 times, you know light. He call a boy. He go bring another match again. He put that inside petrol. He put some bamboo inside petrol. Light fire for day. Light on top all will be the inside long house come away. Then we became born inside house. Then we struggle and struggle. Then brew house, brew. So one they come out for housing. So one they can't bring that door. So they come out. So we pass.
And this is evidence of IG forces retaliating.
No, there's more. Small number. Small number. Still a big number. Correct. 11 man delegation. 11 man. 11 man for 91. I don't pay today. 11 man for operate balance.
You know why we get the meeting? You know why I'm recording? I just want to call you the meeting. They've been a meeting with the whole Momu and Barry subdivision. You know why I'm recording? Because seriously, you are getting about that mind, right, of supremacy. I only believe in overday. Even man, you work on I don't know. If you look over, you see the same thing first. No man, the man not be like you. I was at the strong every picking. That will be to my face. I did the last way this on my band, and Daddy, Mountain Central, Aquaya. No, he's Aquaya, February. From Aquaya right up to Bahoro, from Bahoro to Fundong. I mean, they never come and get for months, they never get general. They will now do some more action, general. Some more action. I want this to say that be supreme. I hear say they hate the cut back color and cut over match road and say I'm cut. Why did I ever call me and say I win? He said no, five after they go to another. But I said, you need to look from the way you work. You guys have to work for you. If I talk to you, the start crying. The have become a normal soldier, they start crying. If they ever calculate, the way it's decided to resign, the soldier will go cry. If the people will put you within their soldier, the entire soldier, they say, this man, if be a good soldier, they will accept that he be a good soldier. He be a good commander. Yeah. Me, I know about playing far with you. But I say, for normal rules and regulations for military.
Before the latest escalation, there had been warning signs and provocations from both fighting groups and concerned individuals.
Fellow Ambazonians, I got a message from you, and in particular to the person of the name Ayabacho Lucas. I have decided to come out with this short message to Ayabacho Lucas. Please, Ayaba, we don't get enough from you. We don't listen a lot of accusation from you. I want to make you know, say, you not own Ambazonia. And if all these allegations will be here for down, the fact that we would be here, it don't mean say you pass we. I send a message to you, I won't just Sylvester Bebonchu in strong terms. Say you must come out to refute these allegations going on. They're not for the kill by people you did down the play game. I don't see a copy of a 12-sub charge online. We don't see accusation leveled by the girl called
any other man or woman or boy or girl. What they call it? What's the ADF? When they out, there was spoil was struggle. As we send people the news. I'm sorry for una. If una don't want to hear and say ADF, when I travel, enter inside mountain. If one man come out, that talks to my born me. If one man come out, that talks to my born me. I send the particular message Ayabacho. And you, when they call him Bible, it is not convincing the small stick man. I don't baby you tire. I don't baby you university. Because of your team, you need the fear. You don't go drunk, you turn back, you send news for your papa, you come. Your time knowledge will go down. Any picky way say papa no go sleep. And then me no go sleep.
You don't sleep.
So listen to me and listen very good.
Diaspora is the useful for make money. Diaspora is the useful for make money. So I tell my brothers and sisters when they do home and abroad. No more intermediary. Do not give any money to interim government. Do not give any money to anybody. You have to send the money directly to the fighters. And when we do so, after this defense will go. We get to separate politics from defense.
All this internal division has made the government forces to sit back, watch the show, then swoop in and finish the job after their enemies have been weakened. While many have perished from the stupidity of this wrangling, Smalley and Godfather remain the poster boys of all the sacrificial lambs. If guerrilla fighters continue to disregard their rules of engagement and being enticed by social media glamour and deny to operate in total secrecy, then they are doomed. What people should understand is that this fight is not limited to ground zero. Even though the fight in the diaspora has so far been limited to social media and surrogates, people might start dropping in the diaspora. Things might get really ugly and bloody across the Atlantic. Unfortunately, these tragic events have amplified the suffering of the same people they claim to be fighting for. At this rate, the government will smash the armed resistance and score a resounding victory. There is a glaring need for reconciliation and a unity platform between all so-called leaders and their surrogates. They all should go back to the drawing board and figure out whose toes they have stepped on and seek genuine forgiveness. The IG must be dissolved and reformed. Those in the diaspora who have actively contributed to this rift must be politely shown the door. For as the saying goes in pidgin English, picking for snake na snake. Both sides must stop the idiocy of kidnapping for ransom. The charm of easy money and dominating of their own brothers must be fought with the last breath. The kidnapping has pushed some erstwhile supporters of these groups to provide the government with valuable intelligence on groups, individuals, and location of camps. If these groups choose to continue fighting each other, then at least be honest to the people that you are not fighting for them, but for your self-interest. Kill each other if you so choose, but spare the already suffering civilians. Just because we have not mentioned Sokadef and other groups does not mean they are not as guilty. Thank you all for your kind attention.